think Aaron has included that as a link so you guys can see my notes. So I won't read everything. Please feel free to read it because there's a lot of good detail in it, but I'll give you a quick summary of where we stand. Um, we had 142 varsity matches this year, but of course, across varsity, JV, freshman slash C teams, and middle school, we were able to successfully staff all of our officials through the matches this year. And I don't think we really ran into any late or last minute problems. Um, we had 17 officials last year. We had a few extra come in during the year, so sometimes it was up to 19. We had 19 registered officials this year, but 18 actively working as one of our officials gave birth really within the first week of the season and was not able to participate, but should be back next year. What we're really proud of is a couple things. We ended up losing about 8 officials in this off season, so a pretty significant majority. A few moved back east, a few retired, and a few were working part-time and didn't have the capacity to assist. But we welcomed back 5 experienced officials and added 2 newish ones. Um, what was cool is at least all of our officials got to participate in some capacity during the playoffs. And we're really excited because we're probably one of the few sports that had an opportunity to do that. Just to give you some context on where our officials are geographically located, as we know, we do have one school, Poudre School District up north. We have a few schools in the Colorado Springs area and a number of schools in the Denver metro area with 16 teams total. 26%, 5 of 19 officials come from the Springs area. With that said, most of the Springs officials and only 1 or 2 officials here in the Denver area are typically able to make pre 5:30 p.m. games on weekdays. So just consider that as we start to build out schedules for next year. We were able to accommodate all of those things, but as you saw in the playoffs, it does get challenging if everybody wants a 3:30 p.m. Playoff game or 4 p.m. playoff game on the same day. During our midseason meetings, we really focused on consistency, positioning, and the application of the rules. And we had meetings to help us with the postseason because we see an increase in aerials and aerial balls. Highly encourage all of our administrators and our coaches to get your athletes playing in the Wednesday night summer leagues. Thanks to CA who hosted these things in the off season, but they were an excellent way for our officials, including our newest officials, to get experience. And we're going to be more proactive in trying to find some additional soccer, basketball, lacrosse officials who are looking for other sports, get them engaged in the summer leagues, which have less impact and are really a good way to get the reps that people would need. So we highly encourage that, especially because in terms of the output, we saw incredible growth for the athletes that participated in that throughout the season. In terms of managing our rule changes through the year, I think from an official's perspective, we don't have a lot of rule changes in hockey each year, but I think we successfully manage that. But we do see some inconsistencies at the JV and C level. There are a few bullet points we have in there. We hope that you can pass that along to your coaches and just let them know at the beginning of the season, there's a limited amount of time. We encourage, while we see a lot of skill development in terms of stick skills and ball skills, if they can do a soft walkthrough on some of the major rule components and restart components of a game, I think that will help with game flow and people understanding what all the whistles are for. We provide during games, especially JV and freshmen, with sort of a 101 lesson to the parents so that they can understand the game better. There's 3 documents, and I'll make sure Aaron and the team get those that we'd love to see potentially on the CHSAA website. One of those is a 1-pager, and we can update that. CA has produced one, and Kent has produced one that are excellent communications for intros to parents. And number 2, there's 2 other documents for the scores. That is a PDF that helps the parents or the table scorers and the duties of the table scorers and the clock officials so that they can successfully navigate when to start and stop the clock and how to properly keep consistent statistics for the teams. I will make sure after this meeting that you all have copies, take a look at it and determine where the best place for those to be distributed to coaches and or parents during the off season or during the next preseason. From a sportsmanship perspective, we really want to call out Grandview and thank Grandview for their exceptional sportsmanship this year. We're really impressed by their um, demonstration of respect for the officials and respect for other teammates. When players would trip or fall down, we saw them picking up other athletes, and they really stood out in terms of their fair play. So thanks to Grandview and their coaches, it was really noticeable amongst all the officials. Um, some things we're committing to for next year. We're going to have earlier full season assignments, so coaches and CHSAA will have a better understanding of any gaps in coverage. And we're going to have our officials get more comfortable so that they know their full assignments and are committed to what we're doing. We're also going to work with Colette and Aaron and the team on improving our evaluation and feedback process throughout the season. We're going to recommend sort of a 1 through 7 scale rating, where 7 is the highest score. And through coaches' feedback, independent evaluations by our experts in hockey, as well as assigner insights and CHSAA insights, that will help us better prepare for the playoffs and have the right officials on the right matches. Regarding C-level games, we saw great success with Smoky Hills Play Day. And one of the things we strongly encourage is possibly seeing the success of flag football on those Saturdays where you had a number of schools getting together to have a multi-round game and multi-round day. We think that would be a great idea to not have independent C-level games and possibly consider some of those things for next year. We continue to recruit and retain officials, and we're going to work hard this offseason to do that. And from a closing perspective, I just want to really thank everyone for a great and strong year. Just know that we as officials do our best. We're not biased. In talking with all the officials, we respect every school and are working on best for all of those schools. And we know you as coaches really are doing what's in the best interest of the students. And please know that we as officials have the same heart in mind. And we look forward to working with everybody next year and having another successful year and continuing to improve on what we deliver and how we deliver it. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thanks for everything that you do. Greatly appreciated. Any questions, follow up to anything that Jonathan presented to us today in committee?
I do want to say that was a great officials report. So good job, Jonathan, for never giving one before. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jonathan, thanks for that. And then, John, one quick thing. I wanted to just take a moment to kind of introduce Garrett. So Garrett Best is on the call as well. I'm sure you all know Garrett as from his phenomenal work, obviously, with you all, but then also as our rules interpreter. Garrett wanted to give you a moment or two to say hello to the group, and if there's anything you would like to add in addition to Jonathan's report.
Sure. Hockey doesn't end. Hockey doesn't end in Colorado. So, coaches, I'll invite you to come pick up a whistle during the off season, and we're going to start indoor season now. But through the various clubs in the state, we're trying to continue to develop our umpires and the coaches, and of course the younger players. I know personally that the Bears program has set up a winter indoor junior league that is played on turf inside at various locations. So we're trying to get all the hockey players to continue playing hockey, and then we have the indoor hockey, which is very different than outdoor hockey. So hockey doesn't end, not in Colorado. It never does. So, and if any of you wants to get involved with picking up a whistle or playing, give me an email, give me a text, give me a call. So the off season is the best time to continue improving all of our umpires. I know my two boys just came back from a Thanksgiving tournament and they earned spots on full field games, 11 aside U14s rather than the U12s or U14s, 7 aside. So umpire improvement is ongoing, and I love to help out wherever I can.
All right. Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. or Coaches Association report.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jonathan and Garrett, for all that you do. We know that as coaches, we know that this sport would not continue to live on if we didn't have officials. So thank you for the dedication and the time you put in. I know it's a lot, so we are grateful. Moving on to my Coaches Association report. Three things that I wanted to discuss today. So we had the scrimmage on 8/16, August 16th. That is the first scrimmage day that we are allowed to have. We had 11 teams of the 16 join us. We had JV and C team at St. Mary's Academy, and we had the varsity team at Kent, varsity teams at Kent on both of their fields. And we had officials. It was a great start for everyone, officials at Kent. It was a great start for everyone to really kick off the season, be able to play round robin style. We had every varsity team played 3 games, every JV and C team played 2. It's just a great way to kick it off. So we anticipate to do that next year. So athletic directors, if you're watching and listening, please make sure to put it on your calendar for the first Saturday of the week. All teams are invited and welcome. So great way to kick it off. This year we had a senior game on November 15th at St. Mary's Academy. We had 48 players who were there, 48 seniors. It was an excellent game. It was a beautiful November day. And we had officials. Thank you, Jonathan, for you and your team showing up and being there. The dark team ended up winning 2-1, but it was a really good game. It's one of my favorites of the year because the seniors are done with their season and they are truly just able to play hockey, play with their teammates and play with their rivals all together. And it's a really competitive, strong game. So anticipate to see that next year as well. Thank you to Claire and Emily for coaching the dark team, and Allison and Spencer for coaching the white team. Really appreciate you guys putting your last day effort of the season there. So thank you. And if any coaches did not receive their certificates, the file was really big when I sent it. So players should have received the certificates the day of the game. But if you did not receive your certificates, please reach out to me at the varsity St. Mary's email. And then finally, we had an end of the season meeting. We had all the coaches were represented there, which was great. All the schools. That was on November 10th, and it was in person. It was at Kent. Richard led that meeting, which was excellent. It was a 3-hour meeting, and it was very needed. We have not had an in-person meeting since COVID started in 2020. They're always usually for Zoom, which, do what we can. But it was a really excellent meeting that Richard led, and it was really good. We had a lot of discussions. And you'll see some of those things in today's committee proposals. So lots of really, really in-depth questions or in-depth conversations that we were able to have in that forum. So thank you, Richard, for hosting that. One of the things that came out of it was there were 3 new head coaches this year, and they are hoping for like a checklist, welcome packet type thing to help onboard them so that they know about the scrimmage day. They know about the senior game. They know about what happens with all conference. They know just some of those basics. It's an overwhelming thing to have jump into a season anyways. Colorado is so unique in our field hockey season and how we run things. So that is something that Richard is putting together that I will assist him with as well. So it was a great suggestion by Cheyenne Mountain, Palmer Ridge, and Grandview coaches. So truly great discussion. And like I said, you will see some of the things later on. But overall, I think it was a great season. Lots of really competitive games. Teams improved tremendously. When you got to see a team for a second or a third time in the season, you saw the skill that they built. So lots of dedication from the players and from the coaches. So really grateful for everyone, all the time and energy you put in. And then the playoffs were outstanding. The semifinals and state championship games, very competitive, very fun to watch. So thank you to everyone for the season. And Aaron, welcome on board. Welcome for your first season. We're grateful for what you did, and onto an off season for everyone to rest. But of course, as Garrett said, get involved as much as you can in playing, get your players involved so that we can pick up even stronger next year. So that's what I got.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. Any questions, follow up for Sarah? All right. I will turn it over to Mr. Judd.
Thanks, John. I won't take too much time because it looks like all the things I would talk about are later in the agenda anyways. Obviously, we always thank John, the umpires, Larry Zapone. I think it would be remiss if we didn't thank Larry and Becky Petrie for their assigning. It is a difficult job if you've never assigned officials. I have a little bit of experience in it. I do not wish it on my worst enemies. At least this season, it was at least dry. And so we didn't have as many reschedules as we normally do. But the fact that we were able to cover as many games as we did, Jonathan, that is mentioned earlier. Please, I hope everybody understands the work and effort that Larry, Becky, and John put into it. It's my understanding that Becky is going to take more of that role in the future, but Larry will be there to assist. Larry and I have been partners for over 20 years in this journey, and my appreciation for him is just I can't mention it enough in words. So thank you to them for that. We did have a great season, as Sarah mentioned. Really excited for the teams that we saw have some success this year. I think that the schedule we had the last 2 years wasn't perfect, but it did help us kind of um, establish some things that we want out of the schedule. And now we're going to try something different again, or at least I've proposed something different again to the athletic directors and waiting for them for their approval. The coaches, the idea came from a coach. The coaches approved it, and we're just waiting on the athletic director's approval. Once I get that from them, I will start working on the next cycle schedule, or at least the schedule for next fall. Plan on having a scheduling meeting at the end of February, beginning of March, where we will put it all on paper. A unique situation, those of you that have never been through it before or don't know, we have to meet as a league because we do have a situation where we can only schedule so many games in a given day to make sure it's not just about the amount of umpires, but also to make sure that the C teams that have to play during the week have umpires, that our middle school programs around the state have umpires. So we do try to limit that, and we will walk through everybody that when we get to that point. So look for that at the end of February, beginning of March. That's usually a 2 hour meeting or so. We will probably do it online, although I would love to do it in person. It's just hard with how we're spread out. So we'll probably do that one via online. Um, Congratulations to our victors on the last day. I thought the excitement of both the consolation championship game and the state championship game was fantastic. Well played on both sides. Obviously, being from Kent, Denver, a little disappointed in the final result, but that's just a personal issue that I'm still trying to get over. But you know that happens. And I want to thank the coaches. You guys are fantastic to work with. You ask great questions. You push some knowledge. The meeting, as Sarah said, while 3 hours, I was hoping to keep it to closer to two. It was a needed meeting where we discussed schedule, postseason concerns, all state, all conference, and those types of situations. So I want to thank the coaches to work that they are fantastic to work with, and obviously the athletic directors for supporting this sport as we continue to hope that we can see some growth both within our current schools of 16, but also among the state. And I know the coaches are working incredibly hard to try to increase participation within the 16 schools. but also around the state to maybe possibly add some schools as well. So I will stop there because, again, a lot of my items are coming later, and turn it back to you, John.
All right, thanks, Richard. I don't know if you knew, but we had a meeting prior to this, and we elected you to continue in your role for another 10 years.
Yeah.
So you're good for
Good luck to that one, John.
that.
We'll see how the rest of this meeting goes.
Thank you for all that you do. Turn it back over to Aaron, CHSAA updates.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. I'll try to keep mine brief as well, as I know we would like to have the majority of our time spent towards discussion and then any action items that we have. But one, just again, wanted to thank everybody in this room on this call for all the work that you put in, not just during the season. We know it's a never-ending process, and just appreciate all the hard work that everybody puts into it. I was really excited about this being my first year with field hockey. It was an outstanding year. I just appreciate the work that you all put it into it to make this a great experience for our student athletes, for our coaches, for our fans. And we'll talk a little bit about some other things in addition to, or in regard to the advancement of field hockey. But quick kind of recap from us from a CHSAA perspective. So obviously this was our second year with the new playoff structure, the consolation bracket. Received some good feedback, on the structure and what's worked, maybe some things that we would like to adjust and change. We'll talk about that here a little bit later. But it was a great postseason this year. We had great environments for our semifinals, for our championships. Just kind of still have goosebumps thinking about the environments that we were able to provide to our student athletes, especially for the championship games. And that's credit to our athletic directors, our coaches for creating that buy-in with your fans and really being able to create those environments. So we had back-to-back state champs this year. We had a new state champion in terms of our consolation bracket. Obviously, it was a rematch of last year in the championship. So just overall excitement. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had 4 of our 6 championship site games were overtime games, which is I love it. It's exciting. It shows the competitiveness, and it gives us an opportunity to watch some additional field hockey, which is great. So I thought that was awesome, especially our championship game going into overtime. I thought was awesome. So again, kudos to you all for the great work you've done to put into that. A couple quick notes in terms of attendance from this year. So we were at 2,100 in terms of attendance for our semifinals and championships, which is up from last year, which was at 1,500. And then the previous year, 2023, was at 1,381. So always love to see that in terms of, obviously, we're going to talk about advancement and growth here in a minute. But when we talk about the excitement, the atmosphere for our student athletes and our coaches, being able to see that level of growth from a attendance standpoint was awesome. So our goal is to continue to see that number grow up, or to grow and elevate each year. But I thought that was something that was very pleasing, and just wanted to make sure we mentioned that to everybody. The next thing that I'll kind of talk briefly about is much of what Sarah mentioned and what Richard mentioned before about a coaches meeting. So as you all know, we do our beginning of the year coaches meeting. At that coaches meeting, we kind of floated the idea of doing an in-person coaches meeting just for our coaches in the winter. I had a chance to reach out to some of our coaches and kind of pick their brain and get thoughts on continuing to do that, having an in-person coaches meeting. So we are going to host an in-person coaches meeting in January, late January. We'll set the date here in a little bit, but this meeting is not going to by any means replace the meeting that Richard does with our coaches. That is a phenomenal meeting that will continue to happen. This meeting will be really kind of complementary to that meeting. So as Richard mentioned, it was a 3-hour meeting. I'm sure it probably could have gone even longer, right, Richard and Sarah? And so we want to just be able to provide more opportunities for those in-person engagements. There's great conversation and dialogue that happens in those meetings. And so if we're able to create more opportunities for that, I think it could really, or we think it could really help continue to advance the sport. So kind of our focus is on that meeting, obviously community building amongst our coaches, amongst CHSAA, especially we've got new coaches that are on board and making sure that they feel supported. I think the other piece is to continue to have discussion around pressing issues around our sport, figuring out how do we tackle some of the challenges, how do we continue to advance it, enhance it, so that we're making sure we're providing a great experience. The other thing too is provide opportunities potentially for professional development for our coaches who would like to see that as well. We've got USA Field Hockey right down the road. in Colorado Springs, and how do we get engaged with them? How do we utilize them as a resource? And so we'll have some opportunities to talk about challenges, but then also what are some key initiatives that we can work together to move our sport forward. So we're looking forward to that. Coaches will send more communication out about that as we get a little bit closer, but we're just really looking forward to that meeting and also kind of it being complementary to the meeting that Richard has in place. So those were the two main things that I wanted to really just talk about during my update. Again, just very appreciative of all the work that you all do to make our sport great. John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Aaron. Aaron, I don't know if you saw that message from Ryan in the chat um, or Ryan. I don't know who the host is now, but Ryan Bishop is trying to get back in. All right, moving on to discussion items. I'm not sure who either sent this over to Aaron or put this on the agenda. I do want to talk
Me.
about clock stoppage. Who's that?
It's Sarah.
Sarah. All right, thank
Yep.
you.
So I would like to propose, and I'm not able to get into the form to officially submit this, so Richard will be talking. But I'd like to propose that we potentially look for next season at stopping the clock for corners. They do this at the collegiate level, and I would be interested in having this be for just the varsity team. So it would work that, the minute the corner is issued, the clock stops, the defense is able to get all their protective equipment on, the offense is able to regroup, and then you play the corner out. Once the corner is over, the clock starts again. It would involve a little bit of work for our officials, obviously for our coaches, for our teams, and for the clock manager. But something that I thought would be really interesting to just give us that time so that we don't burn down and waste a ton of time getting the equipment on, all of that. I would like to propose, though, with it, some guardrails that when the goal differential becomes 3 or more, that it would be a running clock. So this would not continue. This would just be for the first few goals. I know because one of the things is this is going to make games longer, especially when you have corner after corner. It takes time, it burns time, and especially with the fields like St. Mary's and Kent that don't have lights, I know that it is always a concern, especially later in the season, that games go later. So that would be why I think it would be interesting to have if there was like a 3-goal differential, that this would not be in effect, and then we would play out corners just like we do right now. So that is my proposal. Open for feedback. Don't necessarily have to discuss it now. Can discuss it at the coaches meeting, like you said, Aaron, or in the winter. But that's the gist of that.
Thanks, Sarah. I do have a question for you or Garrett or maybe Jonathan. Do we have any idea on the amount of time that each corner takes and what that would do to the length of a game as a whole?
Yes. So at NCAA, they have a highly encouraged 40-second time frame once the corner is called to be ready for the insert. And it is on the umpires to move those players along. And we have to do it very delicately. I give them a 20-second update and say, it's 20 seconds, your target is 40. It's 30 seconds, your target is 40. And it's usually the defense putting on all their equipment. And so that equipment includes knee protection, now sometimes shoe protection, and gloves and masks. And that is absolutely a safety thing. But 40 seconds is what they have for the initial penalty corner. For any, excuse me, for any retakes, they already have their protective equipment on. It is required for them to keep their protective equipment on until the corner is over. So that second subsequent corner goes a lot faster. So it doesn't add a whole lot of time to the games uh, if it's managed properly. The defensive players are used to playing defense, so they get practiced at putting on their protective gear.
But at the high school level, we don't see typically as fast a response time based off of experience level and people's understanding. So what is a 40-second time frame in college typically is about a minute and 10 seconds in high school.
And that's something that with Sarah's proposal only for varsity. So I
Yes,
would appreciate that.
And
only for
so
varsity,
we
yes.
can go back after this if you'd like and do a quick study on how many results were within a 3-goal frame. We could probably take the average number of corners per game, which I don't have that data set against, and then see what that average time is. I can tell you as an example for lacrosse, the stoppage of clocks after goals before restarts adds an extra 36 minutes per game at the high school level. But that's a lacrosse stat. I don't have that for field hockey.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So for NCAA, it was put in place so because it's mandatory to wear masks. So if we're going to impact this, put this rule into place, are we going to mandate that everyone wears masks? Because if you're not, then you just get a bunch of time to stand around. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they don't use the full 40 seconds. If the players are ready, we blow the whistle and get the corner started. So if they don't have masks, fine. It's not mandated at
Okay.
NFHS. If the state wants to adopt that, they can
Mm-hmm.
certainly can. But that will be on the NFHS rules committee.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
That's something that they have thought of as well. Each year, it's getting a little bit more closely aligned with NCAA and FIH.
Gotcha.
I think
Garrett,
something
does
else.
the NCAA have a goal differential?
No, no,
I'm going to
because
jump in here.
that would
I'm not
affect
sure,
their RPI rating at the end.
I'm not sure the goal differential will work as well as we might think it will work. Like I know when we played Regis this year, all the way up until the fourth quarter, we were ahead 1-0, and then Regis got like 17 corners. So like if you're looking at goal, like I mean we've had games where we've had 25 short corners. I mean if you add that up, and for us where we don't have lights on a field, like that really pushes out when we're trying to play 3 games. Like I like the idea of clock stoppages in college. They don't get a lot of short corners in college. I mean if you look at the championship game, there was very few corners in that championship game in that first half. I think total there was maybe 15 corners total for a whole, 60-minute game. So I think college level is completely different. I'm not totally agreeing with clock stoppages for corners, unfortunately. Sorry.
So I know I'm not a voting member, but I am concerned about daylight and JV games. That is getting the whole JV game in if the varsity game runs long because of the stopping of the clock at the corners, especially if you're stopping the clock until the corner is complete. That seems to me to be
No,
an
that
extended
doesn't
time.
happen. The clock starts on the whistle for the corner to begin. Yeah, I know it was misspoken when it was proposed.
Oh,
Clock
okay.
starts on the
Gotcha.
corner whistle,
That's a little bit better.
and it continues to run. Yes.
So then my other question, and again, that eases my concerns a little bit. Is there an opportunity to maybe modify it and say in the last 2 minutes of a quarter or last minute of a quarter, we stop the clock? Is that a possibility or is it all or nothing? I don't know the rule book that well or the options that well to know. So I'll leave that up to you, Garrett.
That would be 100% on the state. For college, for international, what we do is we stop the clock as soon as a penalty corner is called and start the clock as soon as the umpire's whistle is blown, and then time continues to run. So if you have a time frame in there, it's tough for the clock operators. I know that for a fact. It's even tough for them at NCAA. Not all schools have trained clock operators that understand the game of field hockey. Not all schools have trained clock operators. So normally you're getting a volunteer parent So, and it's tough to get right now, the majority of our umpires to keep track of time on their own watch and then keep an eye on if it's matching up with the field time. This would be tough to enforce
Garrett,
without trained staff.
Garrett, is it allowed in the NFHS rulebook to do this? Is it like a state modification or just an option or?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, so this is not.
This would be a Colorado only thing.
Okay, I guess I would just caution us doing anything like that.
So the states do adopt what they want. So I know that in Texas, they adopted the FIH rules. So they don't abide by NFHS. So because
I can tell you that Colorado does abide by NFHS, so that would be
Yes.
like a big philosophical change
Yes.
as an association. Because I do
Yes.
know, yeah, Texas has their own football rules or whatever that might look
Yes.
like. But what is the rule? Like I'm in the rule book right now. Where does it talk about stoppage for is it penalty corners that we're talking about?
It won't be in the NFHS
Oh,
rule.
it's not in there at all. Okay.
Nope. It's in
Yeah.
FIH
I
and the
guess
NCAA rule mods.
Okay. So is it safe to say that this probably isn't a discussion item then?
This would absolutely be a proposal to send up in the NFHS rules board.
Got it.
And
Okay.
we happen to have somebody on the rules board from Colorado, so they take suggestions every year.
But based off of what we're hearing so far, at a minimum, you're looking at 45 extra seconds at best, times at least typically 20 plus corners per game. So that's at least 20 minutes of extended time per each match. Obviously, if the game scores get out of change quite a bit, but that's your starting point, is what it sounds like.
So I'm obviously the one that proposed it. I have no problem, taking it off the table and not having it move forward. I think it's that this was a very interesting discussion. I just know that there's like a lot of time that burns down with teams, like to Jonathan and Garrett's point, that you just watch, especially for close games, you just watch the clock burn. So that's really where this kind of came from. But if it proves complicated and NFH wise that we wouldn't be in alignment, I have no problem.
So there is a way to manage that from the coaches and the umpires' perspective. If it looks like a team is taking too long to gain an advantage, it can be managed by the umpires, usually first verbally. Hey, let's speed up, please. We're going to try to get this corner going. And if it is perceived by the umpire that they are wasting time on purpose to delay this, and I've done this as a defender. Oh, you bet. I'm good at delaying. A card can be issued to either the team captain or to one of the defenders in the goal. Certainly not the goalkeeper, but to move things along. And that sets a precedent, and it helps speed things up. But we haven't encountered that. I haven't, encountered that in high school play. So that's something that the coaches, if you have video of that happening where it looks like the team has been taking too long, send that clip to me and we can see what's going on.
I think is in the NFHS rule book, isn't it 40 seconds? Isn't there a rule? There's no rule in there.
No,
I mean, I think from my perspective as a coach, I've had so many parents go, they were delaying, but quite honestly, I don't think I've felt that way this season at all. And I'm sorry, Sarah, I don't know. I'm sure there have been teams that do sometimes delay, but maybe there's something we can add to our thing where we say, like, guys, 30 seconds max, like, get your shit together and put it together, right? Like, as coaches agree on that. And if we can't agree on it, and then make sure the refs enforce that, because I think if you are feeling that way, that's kind of shitty way to feel, right? Like they're going to run the clock so they can bring everybody up. maybe as a coaching group, we can come to a decision like 30 seconds is maximum amount of time. And if you go over that, then the refs are going to enforce like moving it along and giving them cards. I think that's probably a starting point.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if there's any other questions, any other discussion on this topic.
One thing I'll say, John, to that point is, first of all, Sarah, thanks for bringing this to the group. Obviously, great discussion on there. I think there's some things that we can dig into a little bit more and kind of uncover. So I'm going to suggest that we put this item for further discussion. So that we can make sure that we've taken all things into consideration. And then Garrett, we'll touch base too as well, Garrett. And then this could be something maybe we add to add to our coaches meeting, in January, in addition to some other things too. But I think this was a great thing to have a discussion about, and I think we can continue to talk through it. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Discussion item B, advancement of field hockey. Aaron, did you put that on there?
Yeah, so I'll kind of briefly touch about this, but we'll talk more through it as we meet with our coaches, and this is more so I want to continue to get thoughts and feedback as we talk about the advancement of field hockey. So John and I had some great conversations about kind of two parts of, how do we continue to grow the sport of field hockey, but then also how do we enhance the current experience of our student athletes and our coaches. So what are some of the challenges that are in place? So some of the things that were communicated were limited access to field time and field lights, and limited access to equipment for field hockey, limited in terms of qualified coaches that are sub-varsity levels. So those are things that are kind of impacting the current experience of our student athletes and coaches. So that's a big part of the advancement of field hockey. But then also, how do we grow the sport of field hockey throughout the state of Colorado? So wanted to put that on the agenda to get thoughts from this group of some things, either concerns, some action items for us to take to, our coaches to work through, but really wanted to just spend a little bit of time with this group talking about the advancement of field hockey. And I know you all covered this during the coaches meeting, I'm sure, with Richard, but would like to get thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think for me, the advancement of field hockey in Colorado is probably twofold. There are coaches who do things all year round. Like, I mean, I do stuff all year round, and there are other coaches that just don't know where to start with that. But also, having said that, I think, there are kids who obviously want to play in college, and so they play club. But there are definitely kids where I feel that it's cost prohibitive for them to do field hockey all year round. I don't think it's as accessible to people as it should be. I try and put on as much free stuff as possible, and that's how I built my program. And I know Grandview is working off the same principle, and she got like an extra 15 girls this season because of that. So I think, taking away from the club scene, how does CHSAA support field hockey with, more free things and visibility and that kind of thing? I think that it's great that we have a few clubs here, but I do think they are very expensive for what people are getting if they don't want to play at a college level and they just want to play. Like, I don't think there's that many opportunities for that.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that.
So the question is that I have is for other sports, and I hate bringing up other sports, but does CHSAA do this type of thing, outreach or like a play day for other sports? Jonathan, do they do this for lacrosse or basketball? So is this something that the program is already in place, or would this be something brand new for CHSAA or for field hockey?
Soccer, I mean, soccer has foundations in the community for a lot of local park, recreational, lower cost entry points. For lacrosse, it's very similar to field hockey. The closest thing that lacrosse has is something called City Lax, which I think is an independent organization that was designed to get access to low-cost gear, put things together within the community, and they rely on donations from both, I think, US Lax and the local community to encourage and push the game in the sport. So that's how lacrosse gets by it, and that's probably closest to what we have, what we see in field hockey. And then in terms of basketball, it's the same sort of thing. Basketball in general is a lower cost sport. There's courts all over you don't need huge courts. There's indoor and outdoor, and there's lots of low entry points for kids to participate. It's also, obviously basketball and soccer are more accessible and more knowledgeable. Most people in Colorado don't have knowledge about what field hockey is or that it even exists. And when parents even become aware at the high school level that there's probably more scholarship opportunities for their kids to get college scholarships than they would have in lacrosse or in soccer, it's pretty eye-opening for them. So it's a challenge, and there's other opportunities. That's what I can speak to. The other sports, I'll go back to the CHSAA team for anything that CHSAA might do, but that's what I'm aware of.
Yeah, I guess I would jump in because I mean, field hockey is so unique because just of the number of schools and to the points that you just said, Jonathan. But for basketball, for instance, the schools and the leagues are organizing kind of these outside opportunities, but CHSAA is not organizing anything. So it's really coming from the school level. But in this case, that's why Richard and the league, this leadership and this opportunity to kind of come together as a league to create these opportunities is so important for field hockey. That's the only way that these type of things are going to get organized, I think, really at a grassroots, coaches level.
We did have a discussion about it at the coaches meeting. That's something that I brought up because I feel like field hockey has been so stagnant in the state of Colorado for the past, I've been here since 17 and we've added one team. Like, to me, like, as coaches, the clubs are expensive, in my opinion. But for those clubs to continue to survive, we still need growth, right? So without the high school system and CHSAA's sanctioning of the sport, if we don't have your sanctioning, we no longer have clubs and we no longer have field hockey in the state of Colorado. So as a coaching group, we need to do more to grow the sport in Colorado. And that starts at an elementary level. It doesn't just start at a high school level, because most kids who pick up a stick in the state of Colorado are at a high school level. Whereas you're looking at soccer, you're looking at basketball, you're looking at swim, you look at all those other programs, volleyball, every other sport in this state, kids pick up at like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old level, right? So as a group of coaches, yes, it is not CHSAA's responsibility to really grow. Can you support us? Yes. But how do we get there? I think one of the biggest things that came up at the meeting was that moving middle school from the fall season to the spring season would absolutely help that. Myself as a coach, I would love to be able to commit to making a middle school program happen, but I can't do that during fall. Like, I donate a lot of time to my program, and in order to grow my program, I need those middle schools. Those middle schools are where we're going to get more talent, more kids who might be interested in it, and the exposure, right? I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in on that, but the reality is, without those middle school programs and potentially even elementary programs, field hockey will not grow in the state of Colorado any more than it has in the past 8 years.
Lisa, I'm on board with that. If we make elementary, if we try to push elementary and middle school into the spring, that would provide another, it would year-round opportunity for the officials, and some of them could just jump in and coach too.
Yeah, and
So,
I've spoken to my AD at length about this, and he's totally on board. He's like, how do we get more schools on board? I am Cherry Creek School District's program. We have, obviously Creek has a team, Grandview has a team, and then we have 4 other high schools, plus all the middle schools. Quite easily in Cherry Creek School District, we could have maybe 2 or 3 middle school programs.
So I was speaking to another coach that does have a middle school program because we have one at St. Mary's. And our excuse me, our big concern about switching it to the spring, because I also thought it was a great idea and really like it in theory, but there's a lot of logistical issues that are created by moving it. One of them being the sports that are offered in the spring. We would be concerned, like, some of our best players that we have are soccer and lacrosse players. That's in the spring. We would lose those players to this sport in middle school. And that would be like one of our big concerns. I mean, we are already like at St. Mary's, for example, we are already splitting a lot of our kids who play field hockey into lacrosse and soccer and tennis and golf for high school. And so for middle school, that would be our big concern, is losing kids to the other sports that they've been playing longer. Because I mean, and I know you've got to start growth somewhere, you've got to get going, and then this should be the sport they want to play. But that would be my concern, is we would lose those kids because of that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what the hurdles were for moving it, because that when in Southern California, that was the biggest thing, was everyone started in middle school. It's still not elementary. The earlier the better for sure. But everyone started in middle school, and it wasn't the same season as high school. And the high school coach oversaw their athletes coaching. So like when I was a senior in high school, I was coaching against my friends at the other middle schools, and that was super cool and fun too. And then those girls are also meeting the high school coaches and just like getting to know them and getting excited for high school. So I definitely think that's our best next step. But I couldn't run it in fall either, and we're already low on people, so that's a good next question.
From an official standpoint, I know there's a lot of crossover for field hockey officials from like to other sports, especially lacrosse. Would that be an obstacle we have to face as well, Jonathan?
Sorry, I missed. Was there a question or was that a statement? Because
No, it's a good question. Like, because I know like you do the same thing. Like you are in the spring, reffing lacrosse. Like, would that be a lot of crossover from our field hockey officials and be a less availability for field hockey?
There's very few. There's only 2 or 3 officials right now left that do both. So we still have a lot of field hockey dedicated officials. So that wouldn't necessarily be a problem just based off of the volume I would anticipate for the spring semester. It's right from a perspective of, you will probably not get the soccer or the or the uh, or the lacrosse players. But again, if it's a matter of getting people into the sport, you got to try and get people into it. And if that's when our best coaches are available, then it's certainly something willing to try. The only other thing, not knowing what all our meetings are based off of, is this the best forum to figure out the how and the logistics and the what, knowing that this is a CHSAA meeting, and CHSAA just mentioned that they're not necessarily a part of this particular process. So I think these are all relevant and good discussions. I think we need to come up with some solutions and try some things in the marketplace. To answer your question, Michelle, I think we can find refs in the spring to help with this as needed. And then let's figure out where we continue this discussion and how we continue to do it beyond this meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you for that discussion. It's a good topic. I know it's something that we're evaluating at CA, and sounds like some of the other schools are thinking about how to get more kids playing middle school and even younger. So hopefully that discussion will continue. We'll move over to the next discussion item, C, all conference. I know this has been a big topic. I don't know if this came up in the last coaches meeting with that Richard ran, 3-hour meeting, but all conference discussion.
Yes, it did.
Where are we at with that? How are we feeling? No, there's probably
Well,
some varying
the
opinions on that.
I'll be pretty blunt, and I'll probably make some coaches angry, but the coaches want to try some sort of post-game evaluation, but I'm hesitant in how that will work. And I think there were coaches that were hesitant in that. I'm willing to let them try it, but those of us that have coached, um, the last thing I'm thinking about is who are the best players on the field by either team, and more of what do I need to say to my team after the game. Um, Again, nothing was set in stone. There was talk about doing it in the book or the officials signing off on it. And again, then that information has to get to me. And I'm not so sure how that's going to work. But I'm willing to try it. I just have my hesitations.
Richard, and I'll bring this up, it's really good for picking an MVP. It's challenging when you're doing all conference to find players on defense or that may not be noticeable or statistically relevant throughout a match. Um, it we can look at it as an experiment, but I think we should just test it secondary for potentially next year, and I can build some databases where officials can help. But it typically was done in the Australian Football League. If you look up how the process for the best and fairest, that's what they were proposing. It's very good at identifying the top one or two players. It's challenging to identify the best 11 or 12 players at every single position.
Personally, I don't want the umpires focusing on the rules and the gameplay. I don't want them having to think, oh, who's that player that should be nominated during the game? No. I get tasked with that at a Punjabi tournament that I go to every year. And Bob, what are you doing? I'm just trying to focus on making all the right calls. I don't want to focus on who's the best player on the team. So eventually the umpires will get together and go, pick that one. So no, I don't want to encourage putting the umpires in that position. Let that be a coach's thing. Let that be an assistant coach's thing. Shoot, give that test to the assistant coaches.
Richard, what are the challenges right now with the way that all conference is handled? What are the coaches?
I think the coaches. I mean, John, you and I have been part of these discussions in our other league. Some of it is memory of what's happened before. Trying to go back to games that they played maybe early in August, beginning of September. Some of it is statistics, and part of it is, and it's not the coach's fault. As Sarah said, one of the things that some of the new coaches weren't aware of was what they're supposed to put statistically on max preps. So the concern is, statistics of a player. If I nominate John Hill for all conference, but I don't put John Hill statistics on max preps, and in my little description of you, I just write, John's a great player. He does everything for us on the field, on both ends. If you need a key stop, he makes a key stop. If you need a good pass, he makes a good pass, and so forth. And we all want to talk highly about our players, but that knowledge, statistical knowledge, is sometimes helpful. One thing we did talk about to clarify on the nomination part, if we do continue in a similar path that we've been on, is recommendations by the coaches. So, for example, John Hill, I recommend him for first team all conference. I believe he's a first team all conference player. Richard Judd, he's a good kid, but he's really more of an honorable mention type player. And the coaches really seem to like that idea. So I think there's some wiggle room that certainly in August, I think we'll try to iron out a little bit more.
Does that make it difficult in some situations with this current structure of who plays who and not knowing, not seeing a lot of the different teams?
Yeah, so what I've done the last couple of years, John, is actually make two different all conference teams based on groupings. So that the eight, like I grouped them 8 and 8, and the 8 teams all played each other, so they saw each other. And then when we came back to do all state this past year, they had to be all conference for all state, and the coaches at the meeting nominated them, got to speak about them. And then I sent out at because the meeting got my idea was to do the voting there at the meeting, but we had already been there for 3 hours. And I was ready to go home. I will be blunt about that. And so what I did is the coaches all spoke about their players. I put together a ballot. I also put together the nomination form. I grabbed their nomination form from before, sent that all out for all state, and that's how we voted for all state. Um, yes, not everybody still saw everybody, but that's true in all sports for all state, right? In basketball, I don't see all the players on the Western Slope, for example, that get nominated, and maybe I know about them, so I vote for them, or I don't know about them, so I don't vote for them. But that's how we handled it this year.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this topic? I know we've got a couple coaches on.
Yeah, I guess I was just gonna ask if it's something that's feasible. Like Lisa and Sarah, you guys can probably speak to it if not, but just having the schedule, like in a Google sheet, just having all the coaches on it, have them put, if they can after every game. I don't know again how feasible that is. You guys have a lot on your plates. But they can go in after each game and put, who they thought was the offensive and defensive player of the game, maybe like from the other team, something like that.
There was a discussion about that, and I think to Garrett's point, like refs focus on being refs. I'm gonna be completely blunt. I know who the better players in the state are. Outside of that, I'm not paying attention to most players on the other team when I'm coaching. So for me personally, like when it came to doing all conference team, I already knew who I felt was deserving of those positions. Like it's meant to be your best players in the state. And I know that just from being involved in field hockey. I think the feedback was a lot of coaches didn't really want to do that in terms of taking the time out, or they'll forget about it, which is obviously unfortunate. But that for me, like I just, it's difficult.
I think I think the hard thing that we discussed with doing like what you just said, Whitney, about having a player of the game from the other team or what have you, is that like after the game gets done, we want to go and talk to our team. And so, so it's that extra focus to identify that or write it down or whatever you would do with it. It's just a total mind shift. I'm not opposed to it if that's the direction we want to go in. And one of the things we talked about was that potentially proposing something at the fall, the winter or the whatever spring meeting, so that the coaches could then think about it and then we could discuss it right before season starts. Because I know last year the discussion was had about how to change it at the meeting the week before preseason started. And then once that happens, you're kind of done for because you're just focused on getting your season ready. So, I think if someone is able to propose something like that of how it would work, what your true criteria is, what you're truly looking for, I think the coaches would be open to seeing that. And then we could decide if we think it would work. But it hasn't really been identified and fully laid out yet enough to know how it would work to make sense in practice. But that's my concern is like, we shake hands and then we usually go talk to our team. JV gets on the field and then they move on. So that's the difficulty of it.
Yeah, I guess I just thought like, just sometime after the game, making sure you go to that Google Doc and, all right, it was at least remember the numbers and like the other coach can see like, oh, they put number 8 in, that's Ashley. I'll write her name in. But yeah, it just, again, it'd be a lot more like just something else added to your plate for, sometime after the game that night. So totally understand if that's not feasible. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
And I think it is, it's just knowing what's required. And then to Richard's point, making sure any new coaches know about it too, so that it's not just happening with one or two coaches, through the season. So it's like, Lisa's doing it every single game, but I'm not doing it at all. That defeats the purpose of it, So.
Right. Yeah, I
think
think
that
it
was
would
the
just help,
conversation.
like, your newer coaches, if they're getting that feedback from, you and Lisa, like, like you said, Lisa, like, who a lot of the, better players are, and you could probably just go put it in there, like, every game. Um, but it would just help, like the newer coaches with helping to select those all conference members.
I'm sorry if I missed this. I mean, I can barely find my stats book after the game, so I might be have to assign that to someone else. But are we talking about this because what we're doing isn't working? Like the way we are doing it, we don't like.
We just changed it this year to the way in previous years because originally, like we all played each team once, right?
Right.
And then last 2 seasons they changed it up, and so like half of us didn't play the other half.
Right.
So we were trying to figure out a way to make sure everybody got like the recognition that they deserved, and so it just didn't feel like it was working too well. And so when we did the 2 conferences, but then we couldn't figure out how to do all state, and so like this year's All State was different to last year's All State. So I think that's where all this is coming from. We just haven't set down how we're picking all conference teams properly. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
So one thing I'll say is, first of all, I appreciate the feedback on this. Richard and our coaches, is this something that I feel like this is something that we could add to our coaches meeting agenda too, to kind of continue to flush through and maybe put some things together in terms of what it could look like. So that way, I think Richard, you mentioned, in August or sometime before then, we'd have something in place. Does that sound feasible for this group for us to put that on the agenda in addition to the advancement of field hockey to our winter coaches meeting to talk through?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody was good with that. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for that. Thanks, Aaron. I think if we can also add discussion item D for maybe that coaches meeting in winter. Some of this was discussed in terms of access, different things going on with different schools, programs, kids. In our earlier discussion of the advancement of field hockey, I think we can add that to that since um, we're going over on time, and I want to be respectful of that for everybody's day. Game limit, would like to hear about. This has been a topic of discussion for many years, and get any thoughts, feedback on our current game limit, which is set at 15. Um, any thoughts on keeping game limit at 15, potentially thinking about changing that number?
So I'm going to pipe in there, and I only know this because I had this discussion a few years ago with Justin. I believe that there's a reason behind game limits, and that is because it comes from a medical panel that works in co with CHSAA to determine how many games each sport should play. And Aaron, maybe I'm not sure if you know that this or if Colette knows of this, but the discussion was the reason why we don't allow more games in the state of Colorado is because a medical board essentially makes the decision and determination on what that looks like for game limits.
Yeah, is that something the SMAC committee is in charge of? Is that where
Yeah,
that comes from?
I'm not
I would
entirely
assume.
sure. That's just all that was explained to me as to why we don't allow more games in the state of Colorado for field hockey. So when there are school, like I know, like Hannah and I are both coached in California. I think we had 26 games in a season. Tori said in Chicago that she's played about the same. But for us here in the state of Colorado, it is based off of a medical board recommendation.
Definitely something we can look into. And Whitney's probably right. There is some language in the sports medicine side of things of what those game limits are. But just wanted to hear if there was room for a change, would this group be in favor or not for looking at a potential change?
So, John, I have some concerns um, regarding this just because I think um, I don't think everybody would be able to get more games. I know there are schools that are looking for opportunities to travel, and I understand that, but I'm not so sure, and I want us to be careful that if we add games, that we are definitely doing a situation where it's equal for everybody and opportunities are equal for everybody. And I'm not sure that's possible. And I mean that across the board. And those schools that, may have an opportunity to travel because they have that ability even financially within their school, but don't because of limitations within their school. I think it goes across, and those schools that are, struggling to get enough players out and are struggling, just on the field themselves. So I would caution us to add more games when it comes to that.
I also think the season's quite short compared to other places. And that, I mean, I already try as hard as I can to only play 2 games in a week. And so I think if we increase the amount of games with, holidays, like Rosh Hashanah and all the Jewish holidays where Cherry Creek School District, we can't play in our school district, and then we have fall break, kids go away. I think there's an added layer of, if we add more games, what does that really look like in terms of such a short season? I believe, does the season adjust this year? Do we start a week earlier? Is that right? I can't remember, but I just think the time restriction on it as well might be a bit of an issue if we add more games.
Okay.
I echo what Lisa says. And I think, we got to what Richard said earlier, we got really lucky this year with not having to have a lot of reschedules. But when the weather's bad with lightning or snow, whatever happens, it gets really complicated as you're trying at the end of the season to try to get all the games in too, because you have to get reschedules. So that's my big concern about it. But I agree with what Lisa said as well.
Having said that, I mean, obviously we have our scrimmages, right? I mean, I guess the question would be, are we looking to, like John, I know you guys went to Michigan, are we looking to have those scrimmages turned into something that counts towards a game? Is there a way to potentially change one of our home games so the game still goes ahead to a scrimmage as agreed by? So like, for instance, Smoky Hill plays CA. You don't want to use the game against us, because if you go out there and beat us 10-0, it's not as great as beating a Michigan team like 3-0. So if the coaches could agree, like, hey, I know you want to go and play that Michigan game, let's turn our game into a scrimmage and then have the out of state game be the game that counts towards your RPI or your max preps like score. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that there's some ways to figure out the schedule using your scrimmages and foundation games to fill out a schedule. But it's more of, what are those games that count? If we look at changing those games, in your example, Lisa, that may present a challenge on the other side of just our schedule and the league schedule and those types of things that Richard works on.
I think what I mean, like, if a coach's agreement is like, we still have those 15 games in the season, right? But like I said, if you guys were like, hey, Lisa, we want to play you, are you open to changing our game to a scrimmage, and so we can play an out of state game? Like, more of like a coach's agreement versus what it looks like on the schedule. So our game is still scheduled. I mean, yeah, maybe that means that I have to also find a game out of state. But if, for instance, both you and I are traveling out of state, and you say, hey, we want to make that a scrimmage game, but we want to make this game out of state, the game that counts towards our RPI, does that work? Richard, you've got a smile on your face.
Potentially, but it depends on what the league decides to do in
Yeah.
terms of the
But
structure of
yeah,
the
that's
game.
just an idea.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think that'll continue to be a topic that we discuss, but we can continue to move on today, and then get through our last item, number 8 of the playoff structure. Um, and I think Richard popped that into the agenda on page 2 that you can see there. Richard, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, kind of the idea of changing the playoff structure, everybody would still make the playoffs, and we'd still have and as Jonathan wrote in the chat, the coaches don't necessarily like the term consolation bracket, but I'll continue to use that. for this purpose. Jonathan has come up with some suggestions, which we can certainly discuss another time about. So the idea here is that there really is no benefit for the top four seeds to play the bottom four seeds. I think I did the average. I might have put it on there. Yeah, the average score among these 8 teams the last 2 years was 6-0. And that's mainly because 2 games were like 4-0. And I credit Arapo if they intentionally kept it to a score. But for the most part, those other 6 games that Arapo was not involved with, it was closer to 8-11-0, and there was maybe one goal in there at all. And so there really was no benefit for those games to happen. So the coaches proposed that we give a bye to the top four seeds and a into the championship bracket and a uh, bye to the bottom four teams to the consolation bracket, and then 5 through 12 matched up would then play out the quote unquote first round, with the winners going into the quarterfinals of the championship and the losers going into the consolation bracket, and then playing it out from there. Certainly, that eliminates the situation I was talking about earlier. One downfall is that the bottom four seeds, they are no longer eligible for a state championship. And it's not something we necessarily talked about, but in a discussion with Aaron, he expressed that concern, in which I then emailed the coaches both that information and a second proposal that I didn't bring up today because I heard from a couple of coaches who said, no, we'd rather go with what we've proposed here. I I see. I don't want to eliminate the fact that everybody makes the playoffs. I think that has been a beneficial thing in some respects to teams, but I do think what I heard from the coaches was that they really felt, especially the bottom four seeded teams this year, felt like the intent of the bracket was to keep girls interested and excited about the season in October, when perhaps their season was, for all intents and purposes, over. And while that might have happened for a few schools, it didn't happen for everyone, which I think if we eliminated that first round matchup between the top four and the bottom four, maybe could bring back the intent of the full 16 team bracket. It has its flaws too. But I'm willing, I think it's a good compromise. The top four seeds get rewarded. They don't have to play right away. And so they get a little bit of extra rest. I did tell the coaches that means the bottom four seeds could be going anywhere from a week to 10 days without playing a game, based on the practice schedule or the playoff schedule. And that didn't seem to to bother them. I'm sure they would probably end up, giving some time off to those girls as well. But I have heard from an athletic director or two, and I know Aaron has as well, concerns about, those kind of that 7 through 10 seeded team, and how they approach the postseason themselves. And I frankly said to Aaron, I do think that's on an individual school basis when it comes to that. And I think that's true for everybody. But this was a compromise that the coaches wanted to propose. And so that's what I brought. Really not a big financial impact. I don't know how many schools, Aaron, you could tell me ended up, maybe you can or can't tell me how it ended up charging. But now with the new system, it doesn't, all those profits go to the schools anyways. The big issue financially is obviously, could be some more payment to umpires, but I think those are pretty minimal when it comes to it.
So this is, thank you, Richard, for talking through that. So this is an official proposal, so we would vote on this. So our committee members would vote whether to move forward or not with the proposed structure.
Richard, you had talked about, and I know that I think you shared another option as well. Is that something that needs to be evaluated before we look at this
I mean,
one? More
I can
discussion
certainly
needed?
talk about it. It is as the president of the league, I want to make sure that I am representing the coaches the way that they want to be. Mine was more of a double bye system, where the top four seeds basically get a double bye. 9 through 16 would play a first round game. Then those winners would play 5 through 8. Then those winners would advance to the quarterfinals. And honestly, if we did something like that, I would propose that we don't do the consolation bracket, because then the at least the winners of that first round do get a second game, and it would almost, it wouldn't be a true double elimination tournament. And yes, that would mean 11 through, or the losers of that first round game don't get 2 games, but I'm not so sure that would be such a bad thing. But I will say, from my perspective as president of the conference, this is our formal proposal.
And as from the coaches from the league, is the feeling still that they would like to see or keep a consolation bracket?
I'll let Sarah and Lisa and I think Hannah's on here as well kind of express their feelings on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was some mixed feelings, but my team personally was in the final for the consolation bracket, and we loved it. It was an opportunity. My team hasn't been to semifinals. I think it was in 2017. No, that was more recent than that. Anyways, it was a great opportunity to play high level hockey. It was great. It was really fun to be at that very it was a great environment to play in. As Aaron was saying, the semifinals and the finals were just they were awesome games. They were very competitive, and you got to play that higher level that was more serious, that had fans, that was electric. So I would vote that yes, we should keep it. But I do really support this proposal that Richard is saying, where the top four and the bottom four don't play, because not just this year, but also last year, those games were all blowouts. So, but as he said, those middle teams could go any which direction, and there were a few upsets. So I think those ones we should keep.
Hey, John.
Yeah, I just want to give you guys some more metrics here that might help the decision. I'm not a voter, but I certainly support this. As you know, hockey scores should be like soccer scores. They should be fairly low scoring affairs. In the first round this year, the 1 through 16, the score was 11-0. In the 2 and 15, it was 10-0. The 3-14 was 4-0, but it could have been worse than that. I think it was there was a slight change, and the 3-14 was 8-0. Zero goals. There were no goals scored by any of the lower seeds in the entire first round. Zero. Every game was a shutout.
Yeah.
So the impact, into Richard's point, in terms of potentially motivation or demotivation for some of the lower seeded teams still getting opportunities to play, but playing more competitive matches, this probably does a fairly sufficient job trying to address that.
Yeah, I think most people were on board with this at the meeting, so I don't see it being a problem being passed, honestly. I like Richard's idea of like the double bye, but the only concern there as a coach would be that that's too much time off for a top ranked team without getting a game in. So, great idea, Richard. I just don't think that would like the coaches would like that as a whole. But I think this proposal is good. I think most people are happy with this proposal.
Yeah, I think Elisa and I played in the consolation finals against each other last year. and something just like my filter is always growing the game, because ultimately I feel like that has to be our priority, to close the gap of 11-0 games and to keep field hockey alive in Colorado, like we talked about. But like, even though we had consolation in front of it, and even though we lost in the finals, it still gave like our program some attention, where girls are like, that team is winning, and or like whatever that looked like, to draw some girls in, because people like to win. And even though the wording is whatever, and we only won 4 games last year, to finish in that kind of environment, I think drew girls for our program, which is like right now all I care about, is getting more girls playing the game. And so I do think that the consolation bracket does that. I think the only thing in the future, is just like, if you guys have talked about this before, again, I'm newer, is potentially doing where like the top 8 seeds go into one and the bottom 8 go into one immediately after. And then it's like a Division 1 and a Division 2. That's what we did in Southern California.
So here they tried to pass a 4A, 5A, but the athletic directors didn't go for it. That's why we created the consolation bracket.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's why that happened. I can tell you about that later.
Thanks.
Sounds like you're ready for a vote, John. Discussion may be over for that then.
Yeah, which is fine. Just wondering if we may need to potentially take a little bit more time on discussion with it and some of the other pieces that have been in discussion outside of this meeting, and potentially think about coming back together for a vote. Aaron, what's our time frame on this prior to LC?
So, John, we would want to vote on this if we would like for it to be in effect for next year. We would want to vote on it during this meeting.
Okay. Then we've got our committee members here to vote. Let's see, who proposes? Richard, did this come from you or from the?
Yes, but I'm not a voting member, so I don't know, Aaron, if it needs if somebody needs to make a motion and then a second, or if this is already a motion and somebody needs to make a second.
Yeah, let's do a motion in a second, please.
I can move a motion to try and get this passed. So if someone wants to second it.
Hannah, can you second it?
I second it.
Whoop, whoop.
Voting members, if you can make sure I can see everybody. Raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion to accept this. What is it called here? Playoff structure change. 1, 2. Two, I see. 2 in favor, and those opposed? 1, 2. Michelle, did I get a vote, Michelle, from you? Or are you waiting to abstain?
I was gonna abstain.
Okay, sorry. All right, so we're at 2 and 2. And those of you that like to abstain, Michelle, 2, 2, 2. Oof. Aaron, I see the count is 2, 2, and 1.
That is correct. That's how I see it as well.
Okay.
So then, in the event of a tie break, John, you would have the opportunity to put your vote in as well.
Great. Yeah, I would. Then I will have to go with no on this one. I think we are close. But for now, this would be a no, the way it's written currently. So you have 2, 3, and 1, Aaron?
That's correct. I've got 2 in favor, 3 opposed, and then 1 abstain.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There were no other additions, I believe, to the agenda at the beginning. Anything else that has come up since we began the meeting? No? Okay.
So one thing I'll add, John, is
Yep.
so we're not moving forward based on the vote with the proposal, excuse me, as written. One thing I would recommend is obviously continued conversation, as it seems to be at least in consensus that there should be a change made in the future in terms of the playoff structure. So this could be something we add to our coaches meeting agenda as well, and then maybe kind of going back to the drawing board from our coaches and leagues to kind of really filter out what that maybe it could be one option, it could be another option. There could be a couple different proposals that are submitted next year, but just to make sure everybody's clear, we are not moving forward obviously with the proposal, but that does not mean that there are not opportunities in the future to put forth additional proposals in terms of structure changes from the playoff.
Well, Aaron, sorry, just wanted to see, like, we still have the 2 LCs, right? Is it not able to go to the second one? If we have if we wanted to have more, we just want to have more discussion. If we wanted to come back for a vote later for it to go to the second LC, is that a possibility?
We could, I'll have to check on that, Whitney, but there will be more opportunities for further discussion. Absolutely. Yep.
I think if I can jump in, I think the danger of that is we would probably have to reopen the field hockey report, and the LC in the past hasn't necessarily liked to reopen reports in the April meeting. Um, Aaron, I guess the question I would have is are we too late to for someone to propose something separate of this group for the LC? I mean, I guess we could bring something. Could we bring something to the floor in January? Would you look into that, Aaron?
Yeah, or when does this one need to be submitted for the first LC?
Absolutely. I can, Richard, to your question, I can look in to see if it's an option for that and then get timelines as well.
Yeah, I think we might have some time to come back and still get something proposed in January.
Out of curiosity for the no votes, we didn't have a lot of discussion as to the negative for before the vote as to what were the negative externalities for voting no and the reasoning before. Are the committee members willing to share the rationale for voting no?
I would just like to have more discussion. I just got that proposal last night, so I didn't have a chance to talk to a lot of ADs or coaches personally.
I
I second what Whitney said.
And I'm there as well, and I've seen some other language that has been going around in discussions with others, athletic directors and coaches on some other possibilities. I think there's some good pieces to this. I think we just need a little bit more time to fully get it together.
Thank you for the context.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Aaron, anything else from your end on this?
No, I think we've had some great conversations. I think we've had some great conversations, with everybody here on the committee. Obviously, I appreciate everybody's time. We've got some additional opportunities to have further discussion on some of the items that we talked through. But, I think we had some great conversations today. If there's anything else, as you mentioned, John, in terms of additions to the agenda, I think we gave that opportunity. But we look forward to continuing to work with everybody. We look forward to getting our coaches together in January for the winter meeting, and then kind of our continued work as we get ready for next season. So with that, those are all the things that I had to add. John, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think this kind of shows the field hockey is a priority for those of us on the call, for those of us that have been a part of the field hockey committee and field hockey as a whole in the state and are dedicated to what's next in the future of field hockey. It's important. I mean, it's clear in the 3-hour coaches meeting that you guys have had in the past, the amount of time that we've spent here today going over by 40 minutes, that these are important items that we'll want to continue to have discussion on. Thank you to Aaron and Colette for all that you've done on the CHSAA side of things with the sport of field hockey. Thank you to our guests today, Jonathan, Richard, Sarah, and Garrett, for being here and sharing all of your knowledge and opinions are appreciated. And thank you to the committee as well for the work and time spent today. With that, I will adjourn the meeting, and we look forward to seeing you guys all soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank you.